Okay, here's how we install the new inter-fab T7 diving system. If your diving system comes with a waterfall or a lighted waterfall, either LED or fiber optic, you're going to want to start by installing it first. Now you'll notice that at the end of the center conduit there's a little black plug. Just take your screwdriver and just give it a good whack right there and it'll pop right out. Great. Then what you want to do is take the end of the wire, whether it's the fiber optic or the LED, and you want to take it and just slip it into the end of the hose. Let me zoom in a little bit, just like that. Perfect. That way you can slide them both up at the same time. And then what you want to do is just gently start threading that. Oh, by the way, that flex PVC has a natural curve to it. You want to have the curve pointing up, and just thread them down that conduit together. It's really pretty easy. Just push them in there. And what you'll see there, let me zoom in, at the end it'll just pop up all by itself right through that center, and just get a good hold of it and gently start pulling it up and feeding it in just like that. Yeah, and then that's going to nestle in some preset grooves just like that. Alright, now what we've given you are 4 screws that go into the pre-drilled holes. Let me zoom in. Yeah, you just take those and a Phillips screwdriver and just put them in and snug them up with the screwdriver. Now what you don't want to use is a screw gun or some other mechanical means. If you do, you'll over tighten it, you'll either break the housing or strip the board and then void the warranty. Alright, now what comes with the LED is a color controller, just like that. And what you don't want to do not hook the controller directly to the power outlet. You're going to need a Intermatic PX100 transformer between the color controller and the power outlet. Okay, next step is to attach the springs to the diving board. Again, it helps to have the diving board upside down and on the packing material so you don't scratch it. Now let me zoom in. On the bottom of the board on each side there are 4 bolts sticking up, just like that. And what you want to do is take the spring. Now the springs are directional. Right there in the center you're going to see that there's 3 holes. Let me zoom in just a little bit. The single hole right there goes toward the pool. Alright, just pick it up, slip it over the bolts, just like that. Then you want to remember to take your anti-seize and put it on each of the bolts, and that'll be true for every bolt because you don't want them to seize up. Let me zoom in a little bit. Then what we're going to do is take a flat washer, and then a lock washer, and then a nut. And we're going to repeat that process for the rest of the bolts. And at this point all we want to do is hand tighten them up. Okay, the next step is to attach the base to the springs. Now if you're doing a waterfall, what you want to do is knock that little black cap out of the center of the base from the back side. What you can do is just take a socket and just tap it out just like that. Okay, great. Now you also notice on the base that there's that same 3-hole pattern that's on the springs right there. That single hole wants to go toward the pool. Alright, again, if you're doing a waterfall, what you want to do is at this point tip it over the base like that, take the hose and the wire if applicable and start slipping it through the hole, threading it through just like that, and then lift the base up and then align the holes as you're doing it in the base with the holes in the springs. Okay, there we go. Okay, now that we have the base on top of the springs, what we want to do is make sure that we align the holes in the base with the holes in the springs, just like that. Great. And what we're going to do is we're going to take well, before we do that, just as a hint, the hardware kit that comes with the springs is the one that you use to hook the springs to the base. Now, on all these bolts, you want to make sure that you use the anti-seize, or again, the nuts will seize. All right, what we'll do is we'll take a bolt, zero in, and a flat washer, slip the flat washer over the bolt, reach up from underneath, and slide the bolt up through, just like that. And then we're going to take another flat washer, a lock washer, and a nut, in that order, and go ahead and hand tighten them. And we're going to repeat that process for the rest of the bolts. All right, now that we have all 6 of the the bolts started with the nuts and the washers, what we want to do is take a torque wrench with an extension. Now, you're going to torque these, the stand to the springs at 25 to 30 foot-pounds. And make sure that you use an extension so that the end of the torque wrench is above the base like that, so you can get proper torque. And what you also want to use is a little wrench, a box wrench like that, on the underside. Just reach under so you can get the proper torque. And go ahead and torque down all 6, just like that. Now, once you've accomplished that, then what you do is reset your torque wrench, and you want to torque down the spring to the board at 20 to 25 foot-pounds, and you do all 8 of those nuts as well. Okay, the next step, especially if you're going to be adding a waterfall or a lighted waterfall, is to make sure that your stub-up's in the correct location. You're going to need a 1/2 inch PVC stub-up with a 90-degree angle. Now, the top of the stub-up should be a maximum of 4.5 inches tall, and it should be positioned approximately 3.5 inches in front of those rear jig bolts. You can see them in yellow there in the back. Now, if you're doing a lighted waterfall, whether it's LED or fiber optic, you're going to need a second stub up. Let me zoom in a little bit. Right there, right next to it, for your wiring to come up through. Okay, once you've got those in position, then what you're going to do is you're going to set the board on its protective cover, and it'll align the holes in the base up with the about as parallel as you can with the jig bolts, just like that. Again, if you're doing a waterfall, what we've given you is a small 4.5 inch piece of PVC. Let me zoom in, and a coupler, just like that. What you do is you PVC that little piece into the coupler. That's a union, for example, and what we're going to do is use that if you ever want to remove the diving board in the winter. Okay, so you just go ahead and PVC that, put them together. And then if you're doing a lighted water feature, your wiring, and in this case it's an LED, the wiring from the color controller is going to be at this point coming up through that conduit, just like that. And what we provided you with is a coupler. So you just take the coupler and you hook the controller to one end, and then we take the wire that's coming off the LED, and we're just going to hook it in just like that. And again, this allows you to disconnect for the winter. And the next step is we're going to flip the we're going to take the hose from the waterfall, and we're going to PVC glue it into the coupler, to the union, excuse me, just like that. Okay, now with 2 guys, it's going to be difficult with just one, but 2 guys flip the board and the stand over. Be careful to keep the water supply line and the electrical cord from getting pinched under the stand, and just position it over the jig bolts. Pretty simple. Once it's there, then what we want to do, let me zoom in a little bit, is we want to take some anti-seize and put a little dab on each of the bolts. Yeah, Then we want to take a nylon washer, it's that white color one, yeah. Then a flat washer, a lock washer, and then a nut. Go ahead and just hand tighten all three of them. And once you've got them down, what you do is you take your torque wrench and you set it to 40 to 45 foot-pounds, and you just go ahead and torque them down to that torque. And when you've got them done, you take a protective cap, rubber cap, and you slip it over each of the bolts and nuts, just like that. And that's how we assemble the T7 dive stand.